about 10 minutes, I'm going to open the floor for questions and comments for you folks, so get ready. But I want to spend the next few minutes on Canada and get the panel's views of the changes that have happened here, because this is also, I think, a major sea change for all of us. Joe put this on the table talking about the mercantilist viewpoint of the Harper government and its orientation towards trade investment. I think it's important to also add, and I come at this from as an advocate of freedom of expression, this government has also had a sustained and fairly coherent attack on democracy in the past number of years. Attack on parliamentary procedure in terms of closure, in-camera sessions of parliamentary committees, in terms of prorogations, contempt of parliament. There's been attacks on advocacy that have been quite strong, with the undercutting of civil society participants, environmental activists, and branding them as close to the Taliban, if not criminal, for laundering money. I thought the opening exercise was quite interesting about how many of you are laundering money. There's also been a replacement, an orientation of this government away from a participative model to a charity model, if you want, both in terms of social problems in Canada and globally. And finally, there's been a huge attack on information, on access to information, on the right to know, on evidence-based decision-making. Some people call this a government that has decision-based evidence gathering. It's not bad. Canada, an evidence-free zone. These are T-shirts. Say nothing cuts to the CBC, of course. I wouldn't go there. So, in addition to this being a majority government, there for another 3 years, with a different kind of orientation to the economy and to foreign policy, a very different orientation towards civil society and to advocacy. So that's my views. I've interviewed so much, but I'd like to hear your views. And I'm going to start with Richard, because I wondered from Uganda and working with civil society organizations there, if you actually see some of the same difficulties and obstacles in Canada as you've experienced.
I think from the list that you have enumerated, I was actually getting to a point of asking, are you describing the Ugandan government or are you describing the Canadian government? Although they cut ties a long time ago after the Rwanda genocide, but still I think there is a lot of similarity among how governments are viewing civil society. And I think that's, for me, the more fundamental point, which is that many governments are, well, in this case here in Canada, probably there was a time when you had a relationship where the government invested in civil society. In our case, there has never been that kind of case. We've never got any money from government at all. So indeed, for it, it has always viewed us as what they call, carriers, promoters of foreign interest. But having said that, I think clearly this whole issue of clamping down on civil society by making sure that they don't have the resources to respond to people's dignity in a much more comprehensive way is, I think, a big problem, and something that is happening globally, and it must be fought with all the power that we have got. I have been talking, yesterday I was talking about the issue of these bids where they are asking different civil society organizations to blindly bid for money and then blindly give them money to do things that they have already predetermined, and then you call that a relationship. I mean, it's like hiding your bride and waiting for the day of your wedding, and then they move the curtain and they say, this is your wife. I mean, you can start a relationship, but that doesn't mean that that relationship is the same relationship if indeed you went through a process of having a much more healthier one. So I guess that for me that's a key challenge that is there globally, of how we make sure that the money that they give to civil society is meaningful in a sense that it is negotiated money, it's money that is value-driven, and it's not money that is competition-based. Because competition-based money only brings more competition and more secrecy rather than breeding more openness. And I don't know why everybody across the world thinks that the bid and tendering is much more of a healthy way of getting something objective. I'm still struggling with that logic, but hopefully by the time I finish 2 days here, somebody will have convinced me about how it works. But the other thing I think which is clear an issue is this whole question about information and how information is becoming an interesting way of life. I think the current life, the current practice globally is that, yeah, you may want to hide information, but the world has changed. Everybody is looking at everybody. And because everybody is looking at everybody, that should make everyone worried. Worried because for those of us who are going through processes of senseless consumption, everybody is seeing how we are consuming. I mean, it's like having a very grand 5-course meal in a glass house with poor people sitting outside. They will still see you, and they'll still see how many times you have swallowed and how many glasses of wine you've had. And that is happening globally. And so what that means is that the way we respond to the fact that now the world is more transparent must be clearly a way in which we take cognizance of the fact that there is an inequality that we must respond to. We may wish it away, we may do everything, but I think that is a key point. All these governments that are coming in that are conservative may be able to address some short-term processes or making people feel good for a little time. That this is Canada. The Canadian is the more important thing than anybody else. But unfortunately, the world no longer works like that. Facebook as a nation is 900 million people. And so, like it or not, you may want to assume that there is something called Uganda, which is 30 million people. But that will not, will not compete with the Facebook world or the internet world or the Twitter world or any of these other worlds that have come. So I guess for me, the point I'm making is that as governments become more stronger, as they try to create new meanings out of their governments, they have to understand that they are responding to the world that is totally changed.
Thank you. It's wonderful how someone who's not a Canadian can sometimes see things. We don't always see it the same way. Of course, Facebook also had a way. Gerd or Richard or Kari, I'd like to get your response about the new realities in Canada, and also what has happened to that infamous idea that Canada was once a leader.
I'll stay away from that one. Let me say that what I'm going to say is my personal opinion, so I'm not expressing an institutional point of view. But talking about the institution that I work for, IDRC, of course we are concerned to bring evidence to bear on policy making, and not just policy making, but also policy debates. And we're always careful to make that distinction. Evidence should inform, not just, shouldn't just be looking over the policymaker's shoulder and write their policy briefs for them, but evidence should also play a part in structuring debates about contentious issues where perhaps it's not yet clear, not yet decided where the policy should go. So anything that runs counter to that, of course, is of concern to us. But at the same time, let me add that in the same breath, it's always been, from our point of view, and we've been in the business of research and policy linkages for a long time, it's always been an uphill struggle to convince policymakers that they should consider evidence. They always have interests, they always have constituencies, they always have opinions, they always have ideologies. So it's not that new what's happening right now. And I would put to you that even with a change in government, perhaps we would face similar challenges. Now, having said that, of course, civil society organizations do have to play a vital role to keep these policy debates going and to have an exchange of views on especially contentious issues. Many issues aren't yet ready for policy making. They need to be debated. They need to be explored. Positions need to be defined. And civil society organizations are there to drive that to a large extent. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is perhaps a bit controversial in this group. is it the business of the government to enable civil society organizations to do that? I must say I'm a little bit agnostic on this, and you're going to hear from James Ron later on in the afternoon, who has taken much stronger views on the issues. What's the balance of standing on your own feet versus relying on government support or support from others? That's perhaps an issue to be discussed. So, as I said, I'm a bit agnostic on that, but it's worth debating for it.
We'll come back to that in the next panel. But more Canada, Kari.
But I really do think I disagree here. I think there really has been an enormous change. And this change has taken place in our part of the world. This is really huge change. We talk about BRICS, it's a big change too. But it has taken place in our part of the world. And it is an enormous rise in the power, both the wealth and the power of capital and of money. And it is most visible in the United States, where really this has, I would say, more than degraded and devalued. I think it really has suspended democracy in any meaningful sense of that term. And that is why you have Occupy movements. And that is why you have people who feel they have to take to the street in order to make their voices heard.